are you?
Explores in the further regions of experience. Sensations realm. What is it you pray for?
Welcome everyone, I am Lizardmon and this is Hellraiser in 15 minutes or less. This 2022 movie is a remake on the classic 1987 Hellraiser movies written by Clive Barker. This iteration, however, is directed by David Bruckner. It currently has an IMDB rating of 6.1 out of 10 with a popularity of 10. Just a quick editor's note, when I started recording this it was 10 and literally the next day now that I'm editing it's now 3, so correction, it's now popularity number 3. But without further ado, let's get right into this. We open our movie in Belgrade, Serbia to a mysterious woman in the back of a vehicle. She then meets with a man where she exchanges a good amount of money for a mysterious box. And we now go back to Berkshire, Massachusetts, where there appears to be some sort of party going on at this giant mansion. We then follow Joey as he is now talking to the same woman from the back of the car who says her name is Serena. She then tells Joey that I'm sure Mr. Roland Voigt would be more than happy to meet with him and gives him instructions to meet in a room within 10 minutes. Joey then goes into the room by himself where he sees all these different artifacts in glass cases, and in the middle of the room we see the Hellraiser puzzle box, but it's in a different shape than we're used to, but this gets explained later throughout the movie. Mr. Voigt then comes into the room and explains to him that it's a puzzle and that Joey could be the one to finish it. Joey then proceeds to mess with the puzzle until he finally finished it, sending a blade right through the middle of his hand. Something I've often wondered with this was what if he was holding his hands anywhere else on that and it misses him, then this plan just kinda goes to nothing. Voigt then locks Joey inside of the room when we see the traditional chains start to come for Joey as we see that the box has taken yet another new shape. Voigt then asks for an audience with a Leviathan. We are then introduced to our two main characters in Riley and Trevor as we see it is now 6 years later, and we quickly find out that Riley is living with her brother Matt, his boyfriend Colin, and another roommate Nora. We then get a conversation between Matt and Riley and we find out that Matt is disappointed in the fact that Riley is hooking up with a guy from her AA meetings. It's clear here that Matt is trying to be the responsible older brother but has gotten to his wits' end on what he's going to do with his drug-addicted sister. Riley then lies to her brother saying that she won't see Trevor anymore, and then immediately the next morning goes to see Trevor as we can see she's such a great person.
You look like you drink white Gatorade and smell like nickels.
Trevor then lets Riley in on this abandoned warehouse where there's all this valuable stuff where they can always go in and take it and just try to sell it, and it could be an easy way for Riley to make some money. And Riley, of course being the stand-up responsible person that she's trying to be for her older brother, joins Trevor. The two then break into the warehouse and find this lone shipping container. Then once inside they find a single safe, and inside of that safe they find a smaller box containing an even smaller box, that box being the puzzle box. We then cut back to Matt and Colin as they are living their nice happy life together until they hear Riley stumbling in through the front door, Matt obviously thinking that she's been out drinking all night and relapsed on her sobriety. The two then begin to argue about the fact that Riley can't get her life together. Matt then says sleep off your drunkenness tonight and in the morning pack your stuff and get out. Riley pushes it more to the point where he tells her to get out tonight. As she leaves though, she sees Colin right outside and Colin tells her to come back, but she continues on her ways anyways. Riley then decides to take it out in her car because that seems like a great idea. She then opens this little container showing that she has leftover pills from her drug addict days, and she does the responsible thing and dumps them out, showing that there might be a little bit of growth in her character after all. Until 30 seconds later she's picking them up out in the mud to take them. Don't do drugs, kids. Drugs are bad.
Drugs are bad. You shouldn't do drugs. If you do them, you're bad.
Especially when you're getting ready to play with the puzzle box that opens the door to another dimension. Riley then begins to fiddle with the box and sees that it turns and moves and realizes that it's some sort of puzzle box before inserting her finger into one of the holes. Upon doing so, it opens up the sides. Upon closing the box though, a blade pops out of one of the sides, obviously intended to try and cut her, just like it did Joey from the intro of this movie, and at the same time the drugs start to kick in. While in her absolutely faded state, she sees a figure off in the distance, but upon looking again, she notices it's not there, but now that same figure is saying that the blade was meant for you. The pinhead Cenobite then comes out and says if not you, you must then bring us another, before chains come out of her chest and awake Matt from his slumber. Matt, trying to be the responsible older brother that he is, then goes to look for Riley. He then finds Riley passed out on the merry-go-round, and upon trying to wake her up, he cuts his hand on the box, meaning his fate is most likely sealed at this point. Matt sets Riley down by the bathroom so he can go in and try to wash the blood off his hand, but while he's in the bathroom, things begin to get a little crazy. While Matt is in the bathroom, the walls begin to open away, revealing some sort of long corridor. We now see that the puzzle box has taken a second shape as we hear Matt scream from within the bathroom along with the sound of chains, and when Riley goes in to see what's wrong, notices that he's nowhere to be found. We then see as Riley is being checked out by paramedics as the rest of the roommates begin to wonder what could have happened to Matt. Riley then tries to explain exactly what happened that night, but of course since she was absolutely faded on those pills, no one believes her and she can't make any sense of it either. You can tell that Colin somewhat blames Riley because of him telling her not to leave that night, and honestly, it is her fault. If she hadn't have gone and gotten absolutely faded in the middle of the park at midnight, maybe she would have been a little bit more lucid. She then goes to see Trevor because she has nowhere else to go at this point. She then tries to explain the same stuff to Trevor and he also doesn't understand what's going on, but he saw the box before and notices that it's in a new shape and wonders how she got it to change its shape. Trevor smartly says he's not even going to touch the box. Riley then tries to figure out who owned the building and see if they know anything about the box. They then find Serena, the woman from the beginning of the movie, as she looks a little worse for wear. Serena then says, "Why are you asking questions? There's no reason for you to ask questions, and you have no idea whose business you've stepped in." Riley then shows the box to Serena, and Serena immediately knows that somebody has opened it because it's not in its first configuration. Serena then tries to swipe the box and take it away from her until Riley begins to struggle with her, releasing the blade and slicing Serena, meaning that she'll be getting a visit very soon. As Serena is being rolled down the hall in a wheelchair, we notice that some of the walls begin to give away as if opening the portal to the other side. Serena then tries to run from the Cenobites, but it appears to be one at every turn that she makes. She is then taken by the Cenobites, and before finding out her actual fate, we cut back to Riley, who is now trying to search for more information about Roland Voigt. We then learn that 6 years ago, Roland Voigt disappeared, and at the same time, Trevor has called the hospital about Serena and finds out that she's disappeared as well. Colin tries to call Riley and say that she needs to be with them because they're all trying to figure out what's going on together. And again, somebody's trying to be a good influence on Riley, but she just decides not to as she drives off on her own to go to Roland Voigt's estate. As Riley arrives to the estate, the front gate mysteriously opens. As she arrives, she sees that the entire estate has been covered in some sort of iron pattern, and conveniently, once again, Riley is able to find an open window that she's able to fit through, granting her access to the rest of the house. Riley then manages to find the fuse box and turn on all the electricity in the house, and at the same time finding out that the fuse box also closes some weird iron doors. Riley then stumbles into Roland's Cenobite room, finding all these different papers and documents. Here we even get a detailed description of each of the 6 configurations of the puzzle box, each configuration having a different meaning, with the first lament being life, second lower being knowledge, third laudorant for love, fourth luminol for sensation, the fifth Lazarus for resurrection, and sixth Leviathan for power. We now see that she's been in this room for the entire day as she begins to hear the voice of Matt call to her. She finds him in the basement of the house, but it's clear that something's wrong with him, that being that there's no skin on him. The rest of the gang now shows up with Colin explaining how they called Trevor looking for her and he said that she would be here. Nora then begins to mess with the switches the same as Riley did until one of the switches opens up the secret door. We then learn that once the final configuration has been met with the 6 sacrifices, they are granted an audience with God and get the choice between one of the 6 different configurations of life, knowledge, love, sensation, resurrection, or power, meaning that if they complete the puzzle, Riley can resurrect Matt. Nora now goes into the secret wall door and the door locks behind her. Riley then explains to Colin you have to mark a sacrifice and then they will come to take the sacrifice, but in trying to show Colin, she looks for the box and realizes that she can't find it, but we see that somebody is messing with it and that someone proceeds to stab Nora in the back with it, marking her for sacrifice. We then see the person who stabbed Nora was indeed Roland Voigt as he is hiding within the walls. The group then decides to get out of there in their van, Scooby-Doo style. But Nora's already seeing things. Nora then finds herself in another long corridor as all the Cenobites begin to approach her. Nora then begins to pray to God for salvation, to which the Pinhead Cenobite asks her what is salvation. Riley then notices that Nora is being held up by chains in the rearview mirror, but upon turning back to look for her, she sees nothing but a pile of blood. But don't worry, because the Cenobites have Nora's back. What, was it too soon? Trevor at the same time manages to crash the van, leaving them stranded there. Trevor and Colin begin to argue about what to do next while Riley just grabs the box and runs to a nearby bridge.
Run.
She's then stopped by the Pinhead Cenobite, to which it says if you can finish the 2 remaining sacrifices, then you can have your brother Matt again, for this is the power that our God can provide. There's then this weird moment where the Pinhead Cenobite causes Riley to cut her hand on the puzzle box, meaning she is then indebted to them to provide the last remaining 2 sacrifices. What the hell is that thing? Ah! But if the Cenobites are able to force people to cut their hands on it, then why don't they just do that to everyone? Why must they just wait for people to mess with the box first? Why is it Pinhead running around with the little blade shanking people for sacrifice?
Yelling and kicking, stabbing everyone.
Like, I understand you're doing this so that you have to keep the box inside of Riley's hands, but at the same time, this just makes a whole nother world of trouble where, like, they can just control anything without the box now. As they are walking back to the house, the chatter Cenobite emerges from the road, and instead of attacking Colin, it goes straight for Riley because it's not him that they're after. After being forced up against the wall though by the front gate, the Cenobite for some reason turns its attention towards Trevor, completely disregarding the thing that happened 2 seconds earlier. Riley then gets the brilliant idea to stab the Cenobite with the box, meaning that it is now offered up for sacrifice, and surely this doesn't work, right? Again, the fact that they're just instantly killing the sacrifices makes no sense. The whole point of the Cenobites is to prolong torture, but they just appear to be instantly killing everybody. Hey you guys over there. Yeah, have y'all seen a plot over there? Because we've seemed to have lost it over here. Oh, you guys got it? Oh, okay, I was just checking. Damn, that thing took one hell of a turn. The Cenobites now begin to close in on him at the house, but for some reason, without ever being explained, the bars just magically keep them out. I mean, guys, what was production taking too long? Because you just all of a sudden just decided to stop explaining anything or giving any type of reason for anything. It's just now this magically is happening. Trevor appears to be bleeding out, but luckily Colin decides to try to slow the bleeding by putting on a makeshift tourniquet on Trevor's arm. There's then this really weird moment where Riley finds some pills and says these are strong and stares at them before giving them to Colin. Like, is this supposed to be character development? What was she just gonna take all of them right now because she's a druggie? Riley then says it's the metal framework that keeps them out, but why does it keep them out? What happened to the plot? Where did the storyline go? What's going on? Trevor is lying on the couch when he's woken by Roland, who appears to have some sort of contraption going through his chest, and it turns out that apparently Trevor and Roland had some sort of agreement where Trevor was supposed to feed the box for Roland. Riley then manages to get the blade out of the box and explains the plan to let one of them in so they can stab it again. There's then this funny moment where Trevor says, I guess I can't get you to reconsider, and Riley says, you can't get me to do anything. Well, he's already got you to provide 5 sacrifices, so I guess he kinda can make you do that. Riley then says to take her as if to offer herself up as a sacrifice, but for whatever reason, they decide not to use the chains and instead send in the blind one after them. They then manage to shut the bars behind the one without any eyes, and of course Riley gets spooked and runs away and drops the box in the process, but luckily the Cenobite gets stuck in the bars as well. Colin then goes to look for the box, but instead gets stabbed by Roland, marking him for sacrifice, and pretty bad I might say, but yeah, Colin should be dead now. Roland then exposes that Trevor knew about the box. Roland then explains how he chose his reward and how he chose sensation, explaining that the device in his chest continuously pulls on his nerves so that he can never feel numb but only feel pain. And as he explains to Riley that it's all a trick, that he wanted pleasure of and sensation but all they could provide was pain, we then see their god begins to come down from the sky, it being a large diamond figure. Colin tries to run from the Cenobites, but obviously this isn't gonna work. As the Cenobites begin to close in, Roland then begins to shut all the bars, trapping them all once again. Roland then tells the Pinhead Cenobite about how he built this entire cage so that he could trap them all and demand that they change his gift. Riley then grabs the box and opens up all the doors, allowing one of the Cenobites to get closer to Colin. Colin then proceeds to be wrapped in what appears to be razor wire. The Pinhead Cenobite explains to Roland that a gift cannot be taken back, but instead can be exchanged for another. Roland then decides to exchange his gift of sensation for the gift of power, while at the same time Riley then decides to stab Trevor, offering him up as the final sacrifice. Colin is then released from the wire and the configuration and Roland's chest begins to fall apart and he is put back together again, but then Roland is grabbed by a massive chain and Trevor gets pulled into nothingness. Colin and Riley then head back upstairs to the main room where all the Cenobites await them, and the Pinhead Cenobite asks Riley which of the 6 configurations does she choose, those being life, knowledge, love, sensation, resurrection, or power. Matt appears to her in some sort of vision, but she instead turns back to the Cenobites and proclaims that she wants nothing from them. They then say she's chosen the Lamech configuration, or the first one, meaning life, as she must now live with the pain that she has caused. Riley and Colin then leave the mansion, while I am sure Colin will certainly bleed to death. We then see Roland is now attached to some sort of device where he appears to become a Cenobite himself. For the plot, I give it a 0.5 because they totally lost it. For the acting, I give it a 1.5. Wasn't anything great, but it wasn't terrible either. For the cinematography, it gets a 2.5 because the effects they used in some of the scenes were actually pretty good. And for the bonus point, it gets the full point because they did something different with the box, leaving us with a final rating of 5.5 out of 10 and a final death count of 6, or 10 if you count the other 4 that meant missing with Roland. This has been Hellraiser in 15 minutes or less. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments below, and until next time, have a wonderful day.